Hello everyone, this is Constantin, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. We will cover my journey and how it's led me to launching the Unleash Thyself podcast. And I can't wait to show you and share with you how following your heart can lead you to a place of happiness. So my journey begins in Eastern Europe, where I was born. I was born in Romania, back when it was still a communist country. And because of that, of course, a lot of the influences in my life, in my early life at least, came from a place of scarcity, a place of fear, a place of different beliefs than what you would find in North America or many parts of the world. When the communists fell in '89, I continued to live in Romania with my family, and times were still very tough. However, in late 90s, my parents made a decision to move to Canada to give my brother and I a better chance at a better life. Once we moved to Canada, things were tough because we didn't know anyone. We had to leave all our friends and family and everyone behind, and we all had to start from scratch. And I poured my soul and heart into my studies because I wanted to make the most of this opportunity that was given to me and my family by immigrating to Canada. And then, of course, I continued in the footsteps of my parents, who are both engineers, and I went to university for engineering for a couple of years. And I realized in the time that even though I wanted to make my parents happy and do something that they've also done in their life, I wanted to follow my own path, and engineering wasn't for me. So I switched over to mathematics, and I graduated with a degree in mathematics from a university near Toronto. And I've been in the tech field ever since. I've done a mix of entrepreneurial adventures and business adventures. And currently, I work for Microsoft Canada as a technical consultant. And when I joined Microsoft about 6 years ago is when things really shifted for me, because I joined an environment of high performance and high performers, meaning that for me to continue being at the top, I had to improve myself to a level that I've never done before. So that's where my journey of personal development and self-discovery truly began. And it's also a time when the concept of growth mindset came into my life. The idea that, you know what, you can make mistakes and it's not the end of the world. Because guess what? The way I grew up, the way things were in Eastern Europe, the Russian influenced Eastern Europe, mistakes were punished, right? There was no such thing as you make a mistake, you learn from it, and you try again. So when I heard about this idea of growth mindset, that you can actually try and learn, it blew my mind, literally. And I began trying to understand, is this just corporate talk or is this actually a real thing? Can I work on myself, make mistakes, and people will not punish me for doing so? And that's kind of where things began for my own journey with, I would say, personal development and self-discovery. So building on this idea that personal development was a priority for myself, I wanted to look back to my early childhood, to my late childhood, and I've always been someone that challenged the status quo, not in a rebel type of way, right? Not getting in trouble with police or breaking laws or anything, but more around challenging the idea of what life could be or should be, and other things that some people take for granted, including myself at the time. And I've been challenging or asking questions throughout my life. However, early on in my life, I didn't necessarily do anything about it. I would challenge the thought process. I would talk to an adult or someone I looked up to, like a teacher or a friend, or let's say a coworker, or possibly even a family member. And then I would leave it. I would get an answer and I would move on. Not necessarily agreeing with the answer, but I would move on. It wasn't until later in my life, and again, about the same time, about 6 years ago, when I started really going deep and understanding what my purpose is in life. Because to me, it never made sense that, we grow up, we learn all these things, we then find a partner, have some kids, hopefully raise those kids well enough, and then we die. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense, even now, of course. And while I've always been someone that chased the American dream, right, like always climbing the corporate ladder and making more money and acquiring more things, I now realize in hindsight that that's a good aim for some people, But for me, it wasn't really bringing any happiness internally. Like, I make good money and made good money for a long time. I've done a lot of amazing things in my life. I've acquired a lot of amazing things, but none of those gave me happiness. What gave me happiness was being in service to others. So when I would mentor people, when I would coach people, when I would learn something new and then share with others, that made me feel so happy. And I remember coming out of, let's say, coaching people on poker, because I played poker professionally for a while. Well, every time I would do that, not only was I feeling like $1 million because I helped someone understand the concept that they previously did not, but I was also learning a lot in the process. And fast forward to my professional career, let's say at Microsoft or otherwise, I became a mentor for either people joining the organization or people early in the career. And I also realized that by mentoring people, by helping them, by coaching them, I would learn so much, building relationships, of course, and at the same time, feeling like $1 million because you see the impact you're making in someone's life. What I like to talk about is this idea of following your heart. And I actually didn't know what it meant for a very long time. And it actually dawned on me when I took a 3-week break to go to Ecuador. It was about April of last year, 2022. And the goal for the trip was to do a solo trip through a beautiful country, have a mental health retreat, and see if I can get a better understanding of myself and also understanding of everything that's happening around me. And I was coming out of about 3 years of the pandemic where I worked really hard with my Microsoft team because I was part of the team that enabled people to work from home. So my work had a direct impact on the quality of work and quality of life that employees would have in governmental organizations and of course in the private sector as well. And that meant that I worked long hours and I didn't have, like most people of course during COVID, you didn't have a chance to connect with family, friends, or even vacation. And I used to be someone that enjoyed vacationing a lot. So as I was getting burnt out, I figured I'll take some time for myself. I'll go on this trip and see if I can help both my mental health, so the burnout stage, as well as my personal development. And something that I've only become more aware of called self-discovery, the idea of looking inwards for answers and not outwards. And I figured, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? I'm visiting a beautiful country. I'm going to enjoy some great food, meet some great people, and then come back refreshed to work again. So I went to Ecuador for, as I mentioned, 3 weeks, visited a lot of amazing places, highly recommend the country and the people, amazing. And while I was in this retreat, which was in the Andes Mountains, 10,000 feet of sea level, in a beautiful place full of nature like you see behind me right now, and I got a chance to disconnect from devices, disconnect from everyday life. And I realized how much we in the Western world take things for granted, like water or clean air or even food for that matter, right? And I also realized the importance of community, the idea of finding people that are like-minded with yourself so you can have deep conversations that you may never get a chance to have, but also the idea of sitting with yourself and allowing thoughts to come in. Because I was always someone that was distracted. I was always someone that if I didn't do something, I would pick up my phone and either play a game, message a friend, listen to a podcast, listen to an audiobook, right? I never allowed myself time to just sit with my own thoughts. So those are all things that came to me in those 3 weeks. And of course, there was a lot more, but that's the gist of it. But one thing that really was shown to me at the time by having conversation with other people and also seeing what others have done is this idea of following your heart. So what do I mean by that? It's the idea of doing things that don't necessarily feel right up here only, but they also feel right in your heart. So in other words, if let's say I work in a job, doesn't matter what job it is, am I doing the job because I need to put food on the table, which of course is admirable and everyone should aim to provide for themselves and those around them. But at the same time, how can you take what you're doing, apply your own spin and follow your heart? Like, how do you bring it down to the level where whatever you're doing brings you joy and happiness, and it aligns with whatever you believe your purpose in this life is? And that's the concept that, even though I had a vague idea about in the past, I never really sat down and thought about what's Constantin's purpose in this life? What's following my heart have to do with any of this. And even though I was someone, like I mentioned earlier, that challenged the status quo and always asked the question, what's my purpose? Is there more to life? I never actually followed through on it. I would ask the question and be like, I don't know, and move on. So expanding on my trip in Ecuador, by sitting in nature with myself and then also sitting with like-minded individuals that also have come to the retreat to find their own version of happiness, whatever that might be, right? To find their own version of tranquility. I've come to realize a few things. One of them is this idea that in order to be truly happy in life, we do have to follow our heart, but also at the same time, look and find purpose and meaning in whatever it is that we do. Coming back from this retreat and Ecuador as a trip, I finally understood that our purpose in life is to share our own version of our love to everyone around us. And it's up to us individually to find what that means. And what I mean by that is simply, I'm a person that's learned a few things in life, like everyone else has, because we all have our unique journeys and we all have amazing experiences that we can share. And I can share those through my actions with others or through writing or speaking or talking. But how I do it is what will dictate in the end the impact it will have on the world. If you think back at anyone in your life that you look up to, it's likely because they made you feel a certain way. And you're much more likely to remember people based on how they made you feel instead of what they've told you and what they've done to you. So what that means is that if you lead from a place of control, fear, anything around that, you're going to be remembered as such. But if you lead from a place of love, where you're being compassionate, empathic, nice to everyone, all of a sudden it changes the dynamic a bit. You're seen in a different light. And that's something that I realized in talking to people in Ecuador, but also looking back at my life. Because I've been someone that did both of those things, right? In some parts of my life, I would lead with the fear and the control piece. In other parts, I would lead with love and everything that comes with it. So my biggest realization, and we could call it a spiritual awakening if you like, is all about this idea that love is the answer. And more importantly, unconditional love. Meaning that if I say I love myself, well, I have to love all parts of me, including the ones I don't like to bring up to the surface. Because we all made mistakes in the past, right? We've all made decisions that we wish we could take back. But guess what? We can't. We can only live in the moment and take lessons from those past experiences and bring them forward. I came back from Ecuador with so many beautiful memories, but also a new zest for life. And I had all these new ideas. I thought I changed myself. I'm now going to lead a much happier life. And that was true for the first couple of weeks, like every honeymoon period, right? You then allow reality to set in, and no one else around me changed, right? Not anyone in my home life or my personal life, no one in my work life changed. It was just me and how I perceive the world. So that actually sent me for a bit of a spiral, because I was all of a sudden second guessing things. And I was like, how can I make a change when no one else is changing? And I'm coming up with this new experiences and ideas, and I'm being shut down. And at the time, I was also going through a bit of a tougher time in my professional life, because there were a lot of changes happening in my role and the team I was with, right? So combine that with everything else that I was going through at the time, it sent me down a path of depression. And the reason I mention that is because I'm someone that's never been depressed in my life, at least not that I know of or that I can think of. And even though I've seen a lot of people and met a lot of people that have had depression, I was always a happy-go-lucky type guy, trying to cheer everyone up and bring everyone up. But it turns out that this was my time to sit with my emotions, to look deep into my heart and experience things that in the moment I wish I didn't have to experience. In hindsight, looking back now, I'm grateful that I had my dark night of the soul, which lasted, by the way, for about 7 or 8 months, from June of last year until early January of 2023. And I'm grateful because, it gave me a chance to sit with myself and sit with my emotions. And it wasn't all negative. There were amazing things that happened in my life that maybe I wasn't grateful for in the moment because I was not feeling all right. I was feeling sad and depressed. But then later on, as I started processing them, I realized how beneficial everything was for my own growth, because it allowed emotions that I've buried deep down to come up. It allowed me to understand myself on a level that I have never been able to understand myself before. And as you look at people that talk about personal growth, one thing I realize is that, I can read all the books I want. I can listen to all the podcasts that you can find and watch all the movies and talk to all the mentors and coaches. But nothing changes until I actually do the work myself. And that work means self-discovery. And to me, personal growth, self-discovery go hand in hand with spirituality as well, meaning that finding a purpose in the work you do, understanding that there's likely something bigger than us out there, and there's more to the universe or to our tiny world than we can understand. And when you combine those three elements is when you can now truly unleash the best version of yourself. So the idea of the podcast came to me in August of 2022 when I was talking to a dear friend of mine, and she mentioned this amazing human being that's been a holistic healer for about 25 years of his life. And in that time, he helped hundreds of people cure things like anxiety, depression, fibromyalgia, right? Even cancer, according to what he shared. And all I could think in the moment is that, wow, so someone with that skill set, someone with that gift only helped a few hundred people. And that was very judgmental of me. Because at the same time, if I was looking at my life, how many people have I helped? And, the number will be close to zero, especially not at that level. But it gave me an idea. It gave me an idea of what if we can get messages from people like the gentleman out into the world where we share all the amazing things that people have done and have helped others do, and bring those messages to all of us, right? With the idea that perhaps one story or another, or a tool that they may share, may help you in your own personal growth journey, self-discovery, spirituality journey, whichever journey you may be on. One of the things that I spent time with the last few years, about the last 7 years, was this idea of finding my why. And kind of goes back with the purpose, right? What's my purpose in life? And I read a great book by a guy named Simon Sinek, which a lot of people may be familiar with. And the book was around finding your why, like what motivates you, what drives you, so you can be successful in whatever you do in life. And in sitting with myself in Ecuador and then coming back, I realized that my why, or my purpose in life, is to inspire and empower individuals on their life journeys. It's as simple as that. And that's because I love to be in service of others. And I realize that that's when I get the most joy. When I share my stories and the stories of those around me, and provide the tools necessary to unleash oneself. So looking at my personal mission, then I figured, okay, so how am I going to match that with a podcast? And I realized that if I am to follow in my true purpose and do something that makes my heart smile, I want to ensure that I bring my own mission into the mission of the podcast. The idea of, again, inspiring, empowering, guiding, and supporting you, the audience, on this journey. And we will be doing so by bringing in people from all walks of life with amazing stories. And all of us have amazing stories, by the way, right? Bring them to you, show you how they've overcome challenges and how they helped others overcome challenges. And as you relate with some of those stories, you can now pick pieces and apply them to your own life. The purpose of the podcast is to bring people together in a community of growth-minded individuals that can help each other and themselves to make the world a better place. When I say the world a better place, I don't mean we're going to save the world from pollution and climate change and whatever you believe in, right? I mean, those are amazing ideas, but it all starts with us individually. So if I improve my own life because I become a better version of myself, guess what's going to happen to the people around me? Their life will immediately become better because I'm a better version of myself. I bring more light into the room, I bring more love, and it doesn't mean it's going to change them, but it might, and it might at least inspire them to say, you know what, Constantin is doing this, maybe I'll try something as well. Thank you for taking a step towards becoming the best version of yourself, and let's follow our heart to unleash thyself. And don't forget, we're not doing this alone. We're doing this together. I can't wait to see you. Check out the podcast Unleash Thyself on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts, starting tomorrow, May 17th, 2023. And you know what they say? The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first mile. And I hope you take that first mile with me.